If you've listened to the podcast for any length of time or you've followed my content, you probably know that I released the book, Charge What You're Worth, a Cheer Pricing Handbook in January of 2025. Now that book, for those people who have read it, thank you so much. I truly appreciate you purchasing the book, picking it up on Audible or in paperback, and taking advantage of everything in that book. It's got a lot of really, really great content. Now, if you haven't read the book, we are going to be doing a 10-minute tactic today where we go over how to raise your pricing right now. It's currently October, and it is the perfect time to raise pricing for your classes. So I'm going to talk you through the tactic of how to raise your prices and why you should be doing it right now. And we're going to do it in less than 10 minutes. Let's get into the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cheer Biz Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Cotton, and today we are doing a 10-minute tactic, how to raise your prices for your class athletes at the end of the year. Now, before we get into the episode, make sure you're in our Facebook groups, Cheer Gym Owners and All-Star Cheer Coaches and Owners. Those are two fantastic groups that you're going to want to make sure you are a part of so you can take advantage of all of the content that we have going on, all of the great discussions and everything like that. Now, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time telling you to join everything else. Check out Next Generation Gym Owners. We've got a bunch of great content. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, all of those things. And let's get into the tactics. All right. So I am super passionate about pricing. I think it is really important to set your pricing correctly for your gym. I believe you have a duty to set your pricing correctly for yourself, for the health of your business, for your staff, and yes, for your customers. Everyone benefits when pricing is set correctly and not done willy-nilly. If you undercharge, you can't stay in business, you can't pay your staff, you can't deliver the quality of service you should be delivering. When you charge too much, you get people priced out of the industry and you create problems for yourself and can't get more clients and all of those different things. So it's not good for the clients when we charge too much. It's also not good for the clients when we charge too little. We have to be charging the right amount, and there is a sweet spot. Now, I'm not going to dive into how to use the pricing calculator that I present in the book. That is a totally different thing. But you should be raising your prices annually, especially for your classes. Most of us have a tuition increase for our pricing in all-star teams and things like that every single year. The price for tuition generally will go up. Most of us, it will go up between $10 and $25, depending on the year. But at a minimum, you should be increasing your pricing at the rate of inflation. Otherwise, you are falling behind. So as we head into 2026, you should be prepared to raise your prices. Now, this is where we're going to use the tactic of how do we raise our prices going into 2026. So I've got a few steps for you. Number one is we have to look at our current pricing and evaluate if it is the right amount. So that means we're going to have to go through the pricing calculator. We're going to have to determine all of our expenses. We're going to have to determine how much it costs for us to run these classes. We're going to have to set what our minimum number of athletes in each class is, so we can determine what our baseline pricing has to be with a profit margin for us to host those classes. So you've got to do that first. If you've already done that, then you're in a good spot. You don't necessarily need to go through the entire thing, but I always suggest you revisit those prices and make sure that they are set correctly and you didn't make a miscalculation before. Number two is we need to look at what value we're delivering. So if we are increasing our prices, are we giving a better deliverable for our clients, or is it a small enough amount that it's unlikely to trigger a negative response from our clients that we're increasing the price? Generally speaking, if it's under a $10 increase, for your people who are currently using your product, if they like your product at all, a $10 increase is not going to be super extreme to them. Now, you can certainly keep it below that. If you're only doing a couple dollar increase, then it's going to be almost a non-issue if you're delivering a decent product. But what we want to do is we want to figure out what our price increase should be. If it's for your classes, I would suggest somewhere between $10 and $4, again, depending on your pricing. Now, I would encourage you to check out the book so you can read the chapter on pricing psychology, so you can set your prices in accordance with some of the pricing psychology and best practices for how to set the numbers. Because Y'all, I have seen some crazy class prices with people that are coming to my gym for our Cheer Biz Accelerator. I've seen numbers that I have no idea how they came up with them or why they picked the numbers that they did, because they don't follow any principles of pricing psychology or anything like that. They clearly had a reason. It's almost so specific that they had to have a reason why they picked that odd number. Like, I'm just using an example. It would be something like saying our tumbling class for once a week is $51.75. Like, that's an oddly unique number. I don't know why you would necessarily pick that number. I'm just using that as a random example, but I've seen that. So we want to use pricing psychology when we set our prices. But once you've figured out what your price is and you've determined if you're going to be delivering more value or you're just raising at a very marginal rate in line with inflation, you have to determine those two things. If you are going to be if you're going to be raising it more than like $9, $10, then you're probably going to need to start to give something of value. Now, it doesn't have to be a value like you buy a thing and you give it to them, but maybe it is we're adding a supplemental class. You get an additional 30-minute class a week in there that you can attend. Maybe it is that you are utilizing our lacing up curriculum that we've kind of created in ODT to create value to the tumbling classes. Maybe it's that you are giving them a membership discount and some other perks of being members that you've never done before. You need to be exchanging value for the increase in price when you're starting to go much more. And I say $9 to $10. It's really like 10% is kind of that like magic number. If you're 10% or less, people tend to not really get too caught up in it, especially if you're like between 5 and 7%, which makes sense because average rate of inflation right now, anywhere from 1.2 to 3 to, I think sometimes we've been hovering around 7%. So you kind of you can check that out. ChatGPT can tell you what the current rate of inflation is, and you can adjust your prices according to that percentage if you want, but then follow the pricing psychology. Anyways, I'm kind of going backwards. So, and I'm going to run out of time. We're at 7 minutes. So we've set our prices. We've determined whether or not we're doing inflation increase or we're doing a value increase. If we're doing a value increase, we have to determine those things that are creating value, and we're going to have to market those. Starting in October, this is why it's a great time to do it. I want you to sell every new member who comes into your gym at the higher price. So you've raised your prices. I want you to sell everyone who comes in the door at that higher rate. Do not sell your current clients and just automatically increase their price. So you're going to need to have two ways to charge. So you charge everyone new that new price. There's two reasons for this. One, it tells us if the pricing is set correctly and stays within the tolerance of something that we can sell. Two, it allows you to build a cushion for if people do quit after you raise the prices on your current families. You have built a cushion of people who are paying that higher rate that you can absorb that loss a little bit better. So there's kind of two caveats to that. And then the third reason is you're not having someone join your program in October or November or even December and then turning around in the next month saying, psych, your price increases. So then in November, you're going to send out an email. It's a really simple email to all of your current clients, not the people who've joined recently and are on the new pricing, everyone who's on the old pricing, and say, as a piece of note, we want you to be aware that starting January 1st, your pricing for tumbling classes will increase to this amount. And it doesn't need to be much more complicated than that. Now, if you're adding value, you're going to need to sell that. You're going to be like, these are all the things of value we're adding, and this is why it's going up $25, $30. You need to sell that a little bit better and tell them what the value is. But we're going to send that very short statement out. And then in January, you're going to move everyone up to that new price. And you guys, that's it. That's all it is. It is that simple. A very simple tactic. I got it to you in under 10 minutes, barely. I hope you learned something from it. If you need a little bit more detail, check out the book, Charge What You're Worth, the Cheer Pricing Handbook. It is on Amazon. I would love if you would check it out, read it, download it on Audible. You get to listen to my voice even more and get value out of that. Thank you everyone for listening. And with that, we will catch you on the next episode.